According to a Gallup poll, George W. Bush's average approval rating during his second term as President of the United States was an unsightly 37%, and it fell to as low as 25% near the end of his term. Riding the wave of disappointment with Bush, the Democrats easily took control of both the House and the Senate in 2006, and also won a majority of other local elections as well. These victories were capped off by a convincing presidential win by Democratic contender Barack Obama in 2008. So with a significant Democratic majority in Congress, you would think that Obama could easily get any of his policy proposals on the table, and in many cases he did. But one of the central messages of Obama's campaign was unity and nonpartisanship, and perhaps this was the experiment that Obama tried during his presidency. Instead of going hard on the progressive policy that he and his party wanted to enact, he would try to work with Republicans and try to ease the growing disorder within Congress. Unfortunately for him, he became president during one of the sharpest escalations of political division in America, driven largely by an uptick in hysterical conservative propaganda from outlets like Fox News, as well as the Republicans in Congress choosing to adopt a strategy of absolute obstruction and anti-Obamaism. Hi, I'm T1J.
Follow me.
So after the lopsided Democratic victories in 2006 and 2008, Republicans were kind of in an awkward spot. But it didn't take Republican leaders very long to craft a strategy. They wouldn't break bread with the Democratic majority, nor would they brainstorm ways to repair their brand. Instead, the strategy was to fight. And the way they were going to fight was to oppose, obstruct, and defame the president as much as humanly possible. Basically, in no way could Obama be perceived as a winner. If any of his policy were to be passed, it would be with no help from the Republicans. I also don't think it's a coincidence that the first black president was the recipient of such unprecedented malice. A lot of people unironically marked the election of Barack Obama as an indication that racism had largely ended, but in my view, this idea is quickly disproven when considering the sheer animosity and disrespect that Obama received from not only the public and conservative media, but also from actual high-level politicians. The Republicans refused to meet Obama in the middle on anything, even things they used to support before they became associated with Obama, like tax cuts for small businesses or expansion of unemployment benefits. They condoned, if not encouraged, absurd rumors about Obama being Kenyan or Muslim or giving out Obama phones to welfare recipients. They voted almost unanimously on every piece of legislation put in front of them and viciously attacked any Republican who didn't fall in line, such as the late Arlen Specter, who was actually driven to completely switch parties after falling out with the GOP. And this isn't just speculation, by the way. The Republican strategy of opposing everything Obama said and did is well known at this point and has been confirmed by people who were involved in the party at the time. One result of this obstruction is many of Obama's bills being killed in the Senate, such as the famous cap and trade bill, which was designed to incentivize companies to reduce their carbon emissions. Although the Democrats had a majority in the Senate, they did not initially have a filibuster-proof majority, which meant that Republicans could delay or outright prevent any vote from occurring, which they made significant use of. But what we saw most often with Obama-inspired bills were warped versions of his plans. Republicans succeeded in trash-talking Obama's plans so thoroughly that some of them even saw less support from Democratic voters. The best example of this is Obama's legacy-defining health care bill, the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Now, at this point, the Democrats had briefly achieved a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, which you think would mean that they could easily pass a progressive health care bill. But the bill had been so thoroughly poisoned by Republicans that even some Democratic lawmakers didn't want to vote for it without sweeping changes being made, such as the removal of a government-funded public health care option. And add to that, the Supreme Court ruled that states could opt out of the proposed Medicaid expansion, which would have made access to health care near universal. And what you're left with is this mangled, ineffectual Frankenstein-esque law with Obama's name on it. And the Republicans can just sit back and say, well, none of us voted for it. It's kind of brilliant, if I'm being honest. Now, don't get me wrong. The party that is not in power always goes in on the president. It's the American way. Bill Clinton was impeached by the Republicans, and the Democrats weren't exactly cordial towards George W. Bush. But the magnitude and consistency of conservative attacks on Obama were unparalleled. From the near unanimous opposition votes to congressmen literally shouting at him during his speeches.
The reforms I'm proposing would not apply to those who are here illegally.
The Republicans succeeded in tarnishing the reputations of both Obama and the Democrats, causing Obama's approval ratings to plummet, as well as allowing the Republicans to take control of the House of Representatives in 2010. And now with actual voting power, the Republicans could even more effectively fight the president and his policies with a technique even more devious than the filibuster: the total government shutdown. And again, this isn't speculation. Pretty much as soon as the Republicans took control of the House, leaders began encouraging and calling for a government shutdown to basically force the president to agree to defund Obamacare. And that's exactly what they ended up doing. Fortunately, and I don't want to digress too much here because it's kind of complicated, but this shutdown lasted only about 2 weeks and was largely considered a failure for the Republicans. But it did show how far they were willing to go in order to achieve their goals. And this basically ensured that Obama would get nothing significant done outside of executive orders for the remainder of his presidency. But ironically, the Republicans' refusal to meet in the middle also meant that they wouldn't get much done either. While Republicans succeeded in diminishing public trust in Obama and increasing their own influence in Congress, there was also a growing impatience with their own inability to reverse all of Obama's policies like they said they would. Perhaps this is why Obama was able to easily win re-election in 2012 despite his low approval numbers. But his victory did nothing to calm down Republican fervor against him. They continued their unbridled obstruction in several ways, including the aforementioned shutdown, and refusing to allow Obama to fill several vacant court seats, including one in the Supreme Court, not to mention constant public verbal assaults. All of these attacks continued to rile up the Republican voter base to the point where anything that was remotely associated with Obama was toxic. John Boehner, who was Speaker at the House at the time, even stopped playing golf with Obama because it was alienating his conservative supporters. But it was a double-edged sword. The rage that conservative voters had for Obama was beginning to evolve into a distrust for the Washington establishment altogether. The fact that the current Republicans were unable to get much done, especially repealing Obamacare, was seen as proof that they were just as bad and corrupt and ineffective as the Democrats. So of course, Republican politicians began to echo this message of Washington defectiveness, and the ones that didn't were cast aside by the voters.
Washington is fundamentally broken. That there is a bipartisan corruption of career politicians in both parties.
And this message helped a new brand of Republicans take control of the Senate and increase the majority in the House in 2014. In hindsight, it should have been pretty clear who was going to be the Republican presidential frontrunner in 2016. Essentially, the person who was least like Obama. Obama was intelligent, well-spoken, polite, and methodical. He was a former senator and lawyer with a decade of political experience. And here comes a guy like Trump, an outsider to the political realm who says whatever's on his mind, even if it's rude or offensive. But beyond those qualities, Trump captured the hearts of Republican voters by always saying what they wanted to hear, even if it was impractical or nonsensical. And what they wanted to hear is based on 8 years of the Republican Party brewing this anti-Obama, anti-Washington hysteria. And just like how the passion among conservative voters was less about specific policies and just general anger at the establishment, Trump rarely mentioned any details of any actions he would take as president. He just said he would get things done.
We will have so much winning if I get elected that you may get bored with winning.
He leveraged his status as a non-politician to claim that he was the only one that voters could trust. Of course, the Democrats would never support conservative policy, but the Republicans had also failed. The only option, apparently, would be to put your support behind Trump, a loose cannon from outside the political world. And when Hillary Clinton emerged as his general election opponent, it was quite easy for him to transition the exaggerated Republican hatred for Obama into exaggerated hatred for Clinton. Clinton, of course, worked with Obama throughout his whole presidency, and she could easily be painted as just another Washington elite. Also, the fact that, like Obama, she isn't a white man probably helps with that. Trump would, of course, go on to become president, and the actual reasons for that will forever be hotly debated, but I think it's abundantly clear how he rose to the top of the Republican Party. And now that the roles are reversed and we have an unpopular Republican president as well as a Democratic-controlled House of Representatives, the Democrats must decide how they're going to deal with Trump going forward. Clearly, Trump has no interest in their agenda, but the Republicans prove that all-out obstruction simply leads to more chaos and extremism. And it's not likely to be something that Democrat voters would cheer on anyway. It's really hard to say what the best strategy is when you're dealing with someone as sporadic and unpredictable as Trump. And also when you're facing a party like the Republicans, who have shown on many occasions that they are willing to not play by the rules. But Democrats have a reputation for folding and compromising, and they're going to have to show some backbone if they want the ongoing support of progressives, which is who I think they should be courting right now. At the same time, they're going to have to actually find a way to get things done. And this almost always involves some kind of give and take. And I don't really know the answer. It's almost certainly going to depend on the context of each individual challenge. But what we have learned is that breeding hatred and cynicism has real consequences for our politics and our country as a whole. In my opinion, the Republican Party has been cultivating bigotry and party over country for decades. But their behavior during and after the Obama administration has taken it to levels previously unheard of. And because of this, an incompetent, narcissistic, proto-fascist liar has become the president. And since Trump voters and Republican voters are generally one and the same, Republican leaders seem unwilling to make an attempt to cage the beast they released. So Democrats and progressives seem to have a long road ahead in terms of combating the fury and scorn that currently defines our politics. That's just me though. What do you think? Thanks for watching my video, and thanks to CuriosityStream for sponsoring this video. CuriosityStream is a subscription streaming service that offers over 2,000 documentaries and nonfiction films, including many that are exclusive originals. The content focuses on learning and exploring topics like science, nature, history, technology, and more. In fact, while making this video, I wanted to learn a little bit more about former presidents who had to deal with adversity. So I watched Presidents in Crisis, a short documentary only available on CuriosityStream. You can get unlimited access starting at just $2.99 a month. But if you folks want to try it out, just sign up at curiositystream.com/T1J and enter the promo code T1J during the sign up process. And when you do this, you'll get your first 30 days for free. And remember, by supporting sponsors like CuriosityStream, you not only get access to a great service, but you also support me and my content and allow me to take it to the next level. I also want to officially announce that I have set up a Discord server for fans of my channel to just hang out and chat. I'm hoping that it will be a pleasant alternative to things like YouTube comments and Twitter threads, which are hard to follow and can get out of hand very quickly. I'm going to be hanging out there all the time. In fact, Discord is probably going to be the easiest way to talk to me if you want to do that. So go ahead and check it out. And thanks again for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.